All right, let's talk about that wild time back in late 2020 when a super dramatic and, let's be honest, really confusing deal was supposed to save TikTok from getting banned in the US. It was a total saga of politics, big tech, and some, let's just call it very creative math. We're gonna untangle it.
And really, the whole thing boils down to this one question. A question that sounds so simple, but the answer? Whew, it was a mind-bendingly complicated mess. So yeah, stick with me here. We're gonna solve this puzzle together.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Picture it. It's 2020. TikTok is everywhere. I mean, it's not just an app, it's a cultural force of nature. But there's a problem. The White House is threatening a complete ban. Why? Well, they're pointing to national security, specifically at TikTok's parent company, the Chinese tech giant ByteDance. And honestly, the clock was seriously ticking.
And then, right at the 11th hour, a solution just appears. A deal gets announced to create this brand new company called TikTok Global. The whole idea was that this new thing would be based in the US, and they'd bring in these huge American companies, Oracle and Walmart, to be partners. So, problem solved, right? Yeah, not even close. And this is where things just get weird. I mean, the ink wasn't even dry on the announcement, and suddenly there are two totally different stories about who actually owns this new company. Everyone was just kind of left looking at each other, totally confused.
So, check this out. On one side, you've got the White House coming out and proudly saying, "Great news! TikTok Global is going to be majority owned by Americans, 53%. But then, almost at the same time, ByteDance puts out its own statement that's basically like, no, we're keeping 80%. So, wait, what? How can both of those things possibly be true?
Okay, let's break this down. If you look at the direct investment, the actual money going into this brand new company, TikTok Global, this is how it shook out. Oracle was set to get 12.5%, Walmart would get 7.5%. Add them up, that's 20% for the American side. The other 80%, that was staying with ByteDance. So that's where ByteDance gets its 80% number from. Simple enough, right?
Right, which brings us back to the big question. How in the world did the White House get to 53%? Well, this is where they had to get, let's just say, creative with the math.
So here's the trick. They took that new 20% from Oracle and Walmart, and then they did something kind of funky. They looked over at the parent company, ByteDance itself, and said, hey, about 40% of that company is already owned by American investors. So they just added them together. That got them over the 50% line, and boom, they could go out and claim American majority. It was, a really clever bit of messaging for the headlines, even though we're talking about two totally different piles of ownership. But look, this whole thing wasn't just about who owned what percentage. That was only part of it. To really calm down the security concerns, Oracle was given a job that was way, way more important than just being a shareholder. They got this official title, Trusted Technology Partner. And you really got to pay attention to that phrase. What it meant, basically, is that Oracle's whole job was to be the technological guardian for all American user data. They were supposed to build this digital wall, a firewall, to separate US users from ByteDance back in China. And their responsibilities were super specific. First thing, all US user data had to get moved onto Oracle's own secure cloud servers right here in the States. Second, Oracle would be in charge of locking down all the computer systems. And third, and this is a big one, they would get to constantly look at TikTok's source code, the app's DNA, to hunt for any backdoors or secret pathways that could be used to sneak data out. And that's not all. The deal also said that the new board of directors for TikTok Global had to be mostly American citizens. They even had to have one director whose entire job was just focusing on national security. So you can see they were really trying to stack the deck with American oversight here.
Okay, so the fuzzy math was kind of explained, and they had this pretty solid security plan with Oracle. But there was still one massive, giant roadblock, a problem worth billions and billions of dollars that nobody seemed to have an answer for.
And here it is, the single most important part of this whole mess. The deal did not include selling or transferring TikTok's legendary recommendation algorithm. The magic secret sauce that makes the For You page so ridiculously addictive? Yeah, that was not part of the package. It was staying with ByteDance. So why is that such a big deal? Well, because that algorithm is everything. It's ByteDance's crown jewel, probably the most valuable thing they own. And then, just to make things crazier, right in the middle of all these talks, the Chinese government steps in and changes its own laws.
They put these kinds of AI algorithms on a special list of tech that you can't just export. You now need a license from them to do it. Just like that, the entire game had changed.
And that one move completely flipped the script. This wasn't just a business deal anymore between a few companies. Nope. This was now a full-on geopolitical chess match. It wasn't about what ByteDance and Oracle wanted. It was about what Washington and Beijing were going to let happen.
So over on the US side, President Trump gave it what he called his blessing. It was basically a thumbs up, but, a pretty shaky one. It was like saying, yeah, go for it, if you can actually figure out all the details.
But figuring out the details was now a huge problem. Because for this to work, the new TikTok Global had to license the algorithm from ByteDance. And now, ByteDance needed to get a special license from Beijing just to do that. All of a sudden, the Chinese government was holding the keys to the whole kingdom.
And this really just lays it all out, doesn't it? You had 4 players, all with their own goals. The White House just wanted to get rid of what it saw as a security threat. ByteDance wanted to stay in business in the US without giving up its secret sauce. Oracle and Walmart, they saw a massive payday. And China, they wanted to show they were in control of their own tech. Everybody was pulling in a totally different direction. And, well, what happens when everyone is pulling in opposite directions? The whole thing just collapses. Caught between the confusing ownership claims, the fight over the algorithm, and the tug of war between 2 superpowers, the deal just stalled out. It died on the vine. TikTok Global, it never actually happened.
Which kind of leaves us with this one big question. This whole TikTok Global story, it was more than just a corporate deal that went sideways. It was a huge test for the internet as we know it. And it really makes you wonder, in a world where everything is connected, where data and code just fly across borders instantly, can you actually take one piece of the internet, draw a line around it and say, okay, this part is now American? It's a huge question, and one we're probably going to be dealing with for a long, long time. Something to chew on for sure.